That night, I threw my wife's kids out of my house calmly, without yelling, without slamming a single door. I just packed their phones, their laptops, and every privilege my money ever bought them. And I told their real father to pick them up before sunset. They called me heartless. Their grandmother called me a monster. But what no one saw was the silence that followed. And that silence saved my life. I'm Jack, 50 years old. And this is the story of how I stopped paying for my own disrespect and started getting it back one boundary at a time. If you're watching this, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, have you ever been the one who loved too much for too long without being seen? Because I want to know. How far would you go before saying enough? Tuesday night, the kind that smells like fried takeout and exhaustion. I opened the front door and felt the heat slap my face before the smell hit. Old food, dirty laundry, something sour that used to be dinner. The hallway looked like a war zone. Backpacks in the middle of the floor, towels still damp from that morning, a trail of socks like breadcrumbs leading nowhere. I'd just finished a 12-hour shift crawling through attics, fixing other people's air conditioners. My knees ached. My hands were cracked from the cold metal and cheap soap they give us in the trucks. All I wanted was a shower, a quiet dinner, maybe 10 minutes where nobody needed me. Instead, I got Ethan's music shaking the walls upstairs. Bass, thumping through the ceiling like a heartbeat that didn't belong to the house. Mia, I called. No answer. The glow of her phone lit up the couch. She didn't even look up. 16 face buried in TikTok earbuds, in shoes on the coffee table. I built myself the year Laura and I got married. I took a deep breath. Guys, this place is disgusting. Pick up your stuff. I've told you this a dozen times. Ethan appeared at the top of the stairs, headphones still on. Hoodie half zipped, that blank teenage glare that says you don't matter. What he muttered, one earbud dangling. Clean up, I said. Your mom's working a double. She's on her feet 14 hours a day, and I've been crawling through crawl spaces since 6 a.m. Help out a little. He smirked. Not my mess. Mia didn't even pretend to care. Mom said she'd do laundry when she gets back. I stared at her. Your mom's doing a 12-hour shift saving people's lives, Mia. Maybe she shouldn't have to come home and clean your socks off the stairs. She rolled her eyes and muttered, You're not my dad. That one hit like a hammer I'd already been expecting. Ethan laughed. Yeah, we only listen to our real dad. I didn't yell, didn't slam the table. I just felt something in me go completely still, like a switch had flipped. They thought they'd hurt me. They didn't understand they'd just freed me. I walked to my office, the one room in that house nobody ever entered unless they needed printer paper or my wallet. I opened the bottom drawer and took out the blue binder. It was thick, heavy, organized, every receipt, every bill, every dime I'd spent for 3 years since the day Laura said I do. Cell phones, car insurance for Ethan, club volleyball for Mia, Netflix, Spotify, gym memberships, Wi-Fi, groceries, Amazon orders that showed up like magic on the porch, each one with my name on the statement, my card, my signature. I sat down, opened my laptop, and began closing tabs of generosity one by one. Cancel plan. Confirm you. Pause payment. Confirm. Restrict Wi-Fi to work devices only. Confirm. I turned the router timer to cut the signal at 10 every night. A small, quiet revenge made entirely of logic. Mia finally looked up when her screen flickered. Hey, what the hell? The Wi-Fi's asleep, I said. It's tired. Like me, you can't do that. Ethan's voice cracked with fury he didn't know how to control. I can, I said calmly, and I just did. They both started talking at once. Threats, tears, the usual teenage theater. I stood, went to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and waited for the noise to die down. Then I spoke softly. You're right. I'm not your father. Which means I don't owe you a damn thing. Ethan froze mid-sentence. Mia's mouth fell open. You said you only listened to your real dad, I continued. So I called him. I scrolled through my phone, found the number labeled Tom H., Bio Dad, and hit call. The speaker echoed through the kitchen. Tom, it's Jack. You might want to come pick up your kids tonight. They've made it pretty clear they don't take orders from anyone but you. Silence on the line. Then Tom's lazy drawl. Tonight's not great, man. I got plans. Cancel them, I said. My tone could have cut drywall. Because if you don't, I'll file a motion to modify custody first thing tomorrow. You'll be explaining to a judge why your children refuse to respect the man who's been feeding them for 3 years while you're behind on support. A long pause. Then I'll be there in an hour. When I hung up, Ethan muttered, You're insane. Mia whispered, Mom's gonna divorce you. Maybe, I said. But I won't keep paying to be treated like a stranger in my own home. Upstairs drawers slammed. Zippers whispered curses. I sat at the dining table, binder open in front of me, and let the quiet stretch. The air felt cleaner already. 57 minutes later, headlights swept across the window. The rumble of a beat-up Ford idling in the driveway. I opened the door before Tom could knock. He looked exactly as I remembered: cologne, too strong grin, too practiced shirt, half-tucked, the same easy charm that probably worked better in bars than in family court. What the hell's going on? He demanded. I handed him the binder. That's 3 years of expenses, phones, tuition, gas money, food. You send $600 a month in support. Half of that goes straight to back payments. I've covered the rest. And tonight, your kids told me they only listen to you. So now they're yours. Tom flipped through the pages, color draining from his face as the totals added up. Jesus Christ, this is real, I finished for him. And overdue. Ethan and Mia came down the stairs, duffel bags slung over their shoulders, faces pale. Mia's lip trembled. We don't want to go with him. You said you only obey your real dad, I reminded gently. So now you get to. Tom rubbed his temples. Jack, come on, this is crazy. You can't just... I can, I said. And I did. They're packed. The car's running. You're late. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Mia started to cry. Ethan muttered something about calling Mom. Do that, I said. Tell her I finally listened. They shuffled past me, dragging bags. The screen door creaked, then slammed. Tom glanced back, once opened his mouth to argue, saw my face, and thought better of it. When the engine faded down the street, I closed the door and leaned my forehead against the wood. The house hummed with silence, the kind of silence that doesn't ask anything of you. I walked through each room, turning off unnecessary lights, noticing for the first time how wide the hallways felt without tension, thickening the air. The dishes still waited in the sink. The couch still smelled like cheap perfume and teenage rebellion, but it was my mess now, and I could breathe in it. My phone buzzed on the counter. A text from Laura. All good at home. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed, We need to talk. And for the first time in years, I hit send without fear. It was close to midnight when I heard her car pull into the driveway. The front door opened. The keys hit the little ceramic bowl we'd bought in Nashville 2 summers ago. And the familiar sigh filled the hallway, a nurse's sigh, one that carries the weight of 12 hours of other people's pain. Jack. Her voice was careful too, careful. In here. She stepped into the living room, still in her scrubs, hair tied back, eyes tired. Then she froze. The place was spotless. The floor gleamed. No backpacks, no shoes, no teenage noise. Just the low hum of the refrigerator and the tick of the wall clock. Where are they? I didn't answer right away. I tapped my phone, hit play. Our voices filled the room. My calm request for respect, Mia's sharp. You're not my dad. Ethan's snicker. We only listen to our real father. Then silence. When the clip ended, Laura's eyes widened. Jack, what did you do? I picked up the blue binder from the coffee table and slid it toward her. The weight of it landed like a confession. Everything I've paid for. 3 years' worth. Phones, insurance, gas money, club fees, groceries, utilities. I've been keeping track. She opened it. The neat rows of receipts, the printed statements, the Venmo screenshots, every dollar accounted for. You've been documenting this. Her voice was somewhere between shock and hurt. For months, I said quietly. Not to prove anything. To remind myself I wasn't crazy, Her hands trembled as she flipped through the pages. Jack, you didn't? I did. I interrupted gently. I called Tom. Told him to come get his kids. They wanted their real father. Well, now they've got him. She sat down slowly as if the air had thickened around her. You sent them with him tonight. I nodded. They left about an hour ago. Laura covered her mouth, eyes welling. My God, Jack, they're old enough to know what words mean, I said. Old enough to understand what disrespect costs. She stood pacing, one hand gripping her hair. You can't just, what if something happens? What if Tom's fine? I cut in. He can manage a night with his own children. Maybe it's time he actually does. Her eyes met mine, then filled with something that wasn't just anger, it was fear. Not for them, but for what this meant about us. You could have waited for me, she whispered. We should have talked. I've been trying to talk for 3 years, Laura. My voice was calm, but my throat burned. You always said, they're adjusting, or they'll grow out of it. But they didn't. They grew into it. Her shoulders dropped, deflating. She looked down at the binder again, the math of our family laid bare. Then quietly, why tonight? I hesitated. This was the part I hadn't planned to say. Because my urologist called last week. She blinked. What routine blood work? I said. My PSA's high. He wants a biopsy. Probably nothing. But until I know, I can't live in a house that feels like a battlefield. I needed peace, Laura. Just a little. Her hand went to her mouth. Jack, I didn't tell you because you've been drowning at work. But if I'm sitting in a doctor's office in a few days hearing the word cancer, I don't want my last weeks of normal life filled with slammed doors and eye rolls. Her eyes filled, and for a long moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the hum of the refrigerator again, steady, cruelly ordinary. She sat down beside Audie, reached for my hand, then pulled back, like she wasn't sure if she deserved to. I didn't know it was that bad, she whispered. It's not about bad, I said. It's about done. Her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at the screen. Mia. Then another ping. Ethan. Then another. A flood of notifications. Messages stacked on top of each other, blue bubbles exploding across the screen. Laura opened one. Mom, please. He lost it. He kicked us out. We're at Dad's. He's drinking again. He says it's fine, but it's not. Please come get us. Please. She looked up at me, voice breaking. Jack. She says Tom's drinking. Then maybe they'll see what real consequences look like. You can't mean that, she whispered. I mean exactly that, I said softly. We've been protecting them from reality so long, they think it doesn't apply to them. Maybe tonight, reality knocks back. She wiped her face, pacing again, fighting the instinct every mother has. To rescue, to fix. If something happens to them, they're with their father, I said. Legally, morally, biologically. You can't keep shielding them forever. She stopped pacing, looking at me, with that familiar conflict love for them, exhaustion from everything else, and somewhere underneath it, the faint glimmer of understanding. You really think this will teach them anything? She asked. If it doesn't, nothing will, I said. We teach consequences or we lose them completely. Laura sank onto the couch again, elbows on her knees staring at the binder. You sound so calm. I've been angry for years, I said. Tonight, I'm just finished. Her phone buzzed again, another message from Mia. The preview read, I'm going to tell everyone what he did. Laura's face crumpled. Jack, she's threatening to post about it. I shrugged. Let her. Truth doesn't scare me. Numbers don't lie. She looked at me for a long time, studying my face as if trying to find the man she married beneath all the new edges. Finally, she nodded once. Okay. We won't go tonight. I reached over, squeezed her hand. Thank you. We sat there in silence, side by side, but worlds apart until the clock crept past 1 a.m. The house still smelled like cleaning supplies and a little bit of freedom. Then Laura's phone chimed again, this time a different tone. A group text. She opened it, and the color drained from her face. The screen showed one message sent to half her family, her mother, her sister, cousins, even the church prayer chain. Ruth, Mom, your husband threw the kids out. We'll fix this tomorrow. Laura closed her eyes. Her hands began to shake. And I knew the real storm hadn't even started yet. By 8 the next morning, I already knew it was going to be a day that stank of judgment and perfume. The text from Ruth came first. Be at my house by 9. We're going to fix this mess before you ruin any more lives. Laura's phone had exploded overnight. Her mother, her sister, church friends, even a couple of co-workers forwarding screenshots. Somewhere between midnight and dawn, our family drama had gone public. When we pulled up to Ruth's colonial 2-story, the front yard looked like the entrance to a courthouse, her blue Buick out front, Dana's white Lexus behind it, and Tom's dented Ford parked sideways like a statement. I carried the binder under my arm. Laura carried nothing but nerves. Please, Jack, she whispered before we rang the bell. Just keep your voice down. She's already furious. I'll be calm, I said. Doesn't mean I'll be quiet. The door opened before we could knock. Ruth stood there, 70 stiff hair, sprayed into immortality, a floral blouse that could stop traffic and eyes sharp enough to cut drywall. Well, she said, looking me up and down, the man of the hour. Inside the living room had been staged like a tribunal. Mia was curled on the couch, face puffy from crying. Ethan leaned against the window, jaw locked. Donna was on an armchair, phone in hand, the red dot of recording already glowing. Tom stood near the mantelpiece, arms folded, wearing the expression of a man who thought he was starring in a public service announcement about bad stepfathers. Laura froze in the doorway. Ruth gestured grandly toward a chair across from them. Sit, she commanded like a judge ready to sentence. I didn't sit. I stayed standing, binder in hand. Before we start, just so nobody accuses me of hiding anything, this, I held up the binder, is the record of every expense I've covered for the past 3 years. And this, I pulled out a printout, is the state record of unpaid child support from Tom Harrison, totaling $9.60 plus interest. Tom shifted. That's between me and the state. It's between you and your kids, I said, and by extension, the man who's been paying your share. Ruth's eyes flashed. Jack, this isn't about money. Funny, I said, that's what everyone says until the bill comes due. Don't talk to my mother that way, Laura hissed under her breath. Ruth waved her off, still glaring at me. What you did last night was heartless. You kicked children out of their home. You humiliated them. I asked for respect, I replied evenly. I got contempt. So I ended the arrangement. Donna gave a theatrical scoff. Oh, please. You sound like you are terminating a lease. I turned toward her. Donna, how much did you give Laura last year when she needed help with tuition for Mia's volleyball camp? She blinked, thrown off. That's not the point. It's exactly the point, I said. Because the only people paying for these kids' lives have been the ones being disrespected. God, you're so controlling, Dana spat, turning the camera toward me. You track expenses, you record conversations. Do you even hear yourself? I looked straight into the lens. I hear myself fine. What I don't hear is gratitude. The silence that followed was sharp enough to slice the air. Tom broke it first. You went too far, man. They're just kids. 18 and 16, I said. Old enough to drive, vote, get jobs, and post videos trashing me online. Mia flinched. I didn't. Don't, I said gently. You know what I'm talking about. Dana perked up. Oh, the TikTok, yeah. That one blew up overnight. Laura turned toward her sister. What? TikTok, Dana smirked, scrolling. Mia posted it last night. Don't worry, I saved it. Here. She hit play. The video opened with Mia's tear-streaked face. A shaky caption read, My stepdad kicked us out. Said we're not his responsibility. Cut to a clip of me saying, You're right. I'm not your father. Then a zoom in of the kids' suitcases by the door, followed by a slow pan of Tom's car, leaving the driveway. Sad piano music. Text overlay. Be careful who you call family. And underneath comments by the hundreds. What kind of man does that? Poor kids, he's sick. Call Seeps. Laura's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God. Ruth folded her arms triumphant. Now the whole city knows what you did. I didn't look at her. I looked at Mia. Did you post this yourself? Or did someone help you? Mia's lips trembled. Dana's friend, Janelle. She said it would make people understand. Laura turned to her sister. You told her to post this? Dana shrugged. I said people would be sympathetic, which they are. Over 200,000 views already. The room spun a little in Laura's eyes. She whispered, My hospital HR. They follow that account. Tom grinned without humor. Guess you'll have some explaining to do, huh, eh? I took a slow breath. You think this is about me? Tom, this is about two teenagers learning that actions have consequences. And about a grown man learning that child support isn't optional. Don't you talk down to me, he snapped. Then stand up and act like a parent, I said. The room erupted, Ruth shouting about my arrogance, Dana saying something about toxic masculinity, Tom muttering curses. Through it all, Laura sat perfectly still, one hand pressed to her forehead, like she could hold the chaos inside. Finally, I spoke over the noise. This isn't a courtroom, I said quietly. But if it were, the evidence would speak for itself. I'm not the villain here. I'm the accountant, cleaning up everyone else's tab. Ruth slammed her palm on the table. You're a cold man, Jack. No compassion. I've shown more compassion than anyone in this room, I said. The difference is, mine had limits. The words hung there heavy and true through. For a moment, even Ruth didn't have a comeback. Then she straightened, eyes narrowing like a hawk that just spotted prey. If you love my daughter, she said, voice low and cutting, you'll pack your things. Today. Leave her before you destroy what's left of this family. Laura gasped. Mom, but Ruth wasn't looking at her. She was looking at me. And for the first time I understood that this wasn't a conversation, it was a war. Ruth's living room still smelled like perfume and judgment. For a long time no one spoke. The air was tight, brittle, the kind that snaps before it bends. Laura stood slowly, hands trembling. Mom, she said softly, but clearly enough. Ruth blinked. Excuse me, I said enough. Laura's voice shook, but it was the kind of shaking that comes from years of being silent, and finally choosing not to be. You don't get to decide my marriage. You don't get to make a spectacle out of us. Ruth's mouth opened, but Laura didn't stop. Jack is my husband. This is our family. And our house has rules. The room went still. Even Dana lowered her phone. I set the binder on the table and flipped it open to a clean page. My handwriting was firm, mechanical, the way I used to fill out work orders before customers started yelling about thermostats. Here's what's going to happen, I said. If this family is going to keep standing, we're doing it on paper in black and white. I wrote the title, Family Contract. Then I read as I wrote each line, steady as a nail. Respect is mandatory. You can be angry, sad, or scared, but you don't get to be cruel. 2. Chores are not charity. Everyone contributes. You live here, you help here. 3. Privileges are earned. Wi-Fi, phone plans, car keys, they are tied to behavior, not entitlement. 4. Gratitude is expected. You say thank you even when it's awkward. Especially then. 5. Curfews mean something. If you want to live like adults, you first learn to keep promises like adults. 6. No triangulating parents. No mom said yes. Dad said no. No grandma says we don't have to. The decisions start and end with us, Jack and Laura. I looked up. Ethan was staring at the floor. Mia's lip quivered, but she didn't speak. Then I added the new page 1. That wasn't about the kids. 7. For Tom, proof of timely child support payments every month. If he misses, I file for contempt. 8. For Ruth and Dana, no more secret rescues, no undermining discipline, no interference in parenting decisions. Concerns go directly to the 2 adults in the marriage, not through texts, whispers, or Facebook posts. Dana's jaw dropped. You can't tell me how to talk to my sister. I can tell you how to stay in our lives, I said evenly. Those are different things. Tom snorted, shaking his head. You're out of your damn mind, man. My apartment's too small, my schedule's full. I can't take them full time. I turned to him. Then you make support payments on time. No more excuses. The court doesn't care about your schedule. He laughed, half nervous. You threatening me? No, I said. I'm reminding you. Wage garnishment is automatic once the motion's filed. I'd rather see you act like a father than a defendant. He went red. Ruth hissed. You have no right to talk to him like that. I have every right, I said quietly. I'm the one who's been paying his share. Laura touched my arm, grounding me. Her voice was soft but firm. Jack's right. This can't keep happening. We need order, not chaos, not opinions, not pity. Her words hit the room like a quiet detonation. Even Ruth blinked, uncertain. I turned to Mia and Ethan. I'm not your enemy. I'm the man who's been trying to keep the lights on and the roof steady while everyone else tears holes in it. You don't have to love me, but you will learn to respect me or learn to live elsewhere. Mia wiped her eyes. Ethan crossed his arms but didn't argue. That was progress enough for now. Ruth finally exhaled, the sound sharp as breaking glass. So this is it. You're making my daughter choose between her children and her husband. No, I said. I'm asking her to choose sanity. Laura's eyes met mine. And I already have. We didn't slam the door when we left. We didn't shout, didn't curse. Just the sound of the binder closing, a sound final enough to make Ruth flinch. The sun outside was too bright, almost metallic. On the walk to the car, Laura's hand found mine. For the first time in a long time, I felt her fingers squeeze back. We drove in silence. No radio, no words, just the thrum of tires on asphalt and the faint whistle of November air through the window seal. Halfway home, Laura let out a shaky laugh that sounded more like a sigh. I can't believe I said that to my mother. You didn't just say it. I said. You meant it. She nodded, staring out the window. It felt good. Scary, but good. That's what drawing a line feels like, I said. Scary at first, then necessary. When we pulled into the driveway, the house looked smaller than I remembered, empty, but peaceful, like it was waiting for us to set new rules inside its walls. Laura turned off the engine, but didn't move. Do you think they'll hate me? They'll be angry, I said. But anger fades. Resentment fades slower, but even that dies when people see you mean what you say. We got out, carried nothing but exhaustion and resolve. Inside, I placed the binder on the kitchen table, our new command center. On top of it, I laid the freshly signed family contract, each name scrawled under its section. Jack, Laura. Even Tom's reluctant signature written like a man, forced to sign a confession. I looked at it for a long time. It wasn't pretty, but it was ours, a peace treaty written in ink and truth. Laura went to the sink, filled 2 glasses of water, and handed me one. Her voice was low. Thank you for not giving up. I almost did. I said. Then I remembered why I married you, because you're the only one who could stand in a storm and still look for light. Her smile was small but real. For the first time in months, we sat together at the kitchen table, without shouting upstairs or slammed doors down the hall. The silence felt fragile, like a truce. Then Laura's phone buzzed. She frowned, glanced down, and went pale. From HR, Mercy General Hospital. Hi, Laura. Could you come by my office tomorrow? We need to discuss a social media allegation that's come to our attention regarding potential emotional abuse at home. Her hand shook. She looked at me, eyes wide with panic. Jack. I reached across the table and stilled her trembling fingers. Let them talk, I said quietly. We've already decided who we are. But in my chest I felt it, the cold electric sting of the next storm gathering. By Thursday morning, our quiet house had turned radioactive. Laura sat at the kitchen table in her scrubs, staring at her phone, like it was counting down to detonation. Every few minutes it buzzed. Custody co-workers, friends, even her shift supervisor saw something online. Are you okay? The HR email sat pinned at the top of her inbox. Meeting confirmed. Friday, 10:30 a.m. Regarding allegations circulating on social media. She looked at me across the table, eyes hollow. I could lose my job over this, Jack. No, you won't. But we're not waiting for it to get worse. I grabbed my phone, scrolled to a number I hadn't used in years, and hit call. Grace Whitman came, the voice steady, seasoned, the tone of someone who'd seen every version of family war. Grace, it's Jack Turner. A pause, then a knowing sigh. Jesus, Jack. I read the TikTok. You're trending, and not the good kind. Yeah, I said dryly. I need you. Already drafting coffee and legal pads, she replied. By noon, Grace was at our kitchen table, 55 sharp suit, hair silver, but eyes sharper. She'd been our neighbor once, before her divorce turned her into the fiercest family attorney in Hamilton County. She didn't waste time on sympathy. She opened her laptop and started typing. Step 1, she said. We stop the bleeding. Dana's friend, the one who helped post the TikTok, Janelle, Laura said quietly. Good. She's getting a cease and desist today. I'll include a digital preservation demand to the platforms, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, forcing them to archive every upload and comment as evidence. This isn't defamation cleanup. This is documentation for court. She typed fast, words snapping out like bullets. Step 2, Tom. We remind his lawyer that your parenting plan includes non-disparagement clauses and shared cooperation provisions. His involvement in encouraging this narrative, explicitly or implicitly, is interference. We hit him with a notice of breach. Laura blinked. You can do that. Grace smirked. Honey, I can do better. She turned to me. And you're filing a motion to modify child support. and compel co-parenting therapy. You've been the de facto provider. The numbers back you up. The court loves numbers. I nodded. They're all in here. I tapped the binder. Of course they are, Grace said, smiling faintly. You've always been a man who keeps receipts. Meanwhile, outside our little legal war room, the neighborhood had erupted into whispers. By evening, Karen from the HOA, the self-appointed mayor of the cul-de-sac, had apparently gone door to door reciting her version of events, like gospel. According to her, I'd thrown 2 minors into the street at midnight. By the time I reached our porch, 2 neighbors had already crossed the street when I waved. So I did what no one expected. I went door to door. Calm, polite, deliberate. When they opened, I said only one sentence. The kids are with their father per their stated choice. We're following the court-approved plan. No drama. No anger. Just truth in 12 words. Some nodded awkwardly. Some pretended to check their phones. Karen, of course, tried to film it for record. I smiled and waved to the camera. Record that too. By dusk, the air had thinned but not cleared. Laura sat on the couch scrolling through comments on Mia's post. The video had crossed 500,000 views. The captions now read, "Update, he's lawyered up." The irony almost made me laugh. Grace says we'll get a takedown order, I said gently. It won't last forever. It's not forever that scares me, Laura whispered. It's tomorrow. Before I could answer, there was a knock at the door. No, not a knock, a pounding. Then through the window, blue lights. 2 police cruisers. Laura froze. Oh, God. I opened the door. 2 officers stood there, one older, one younger, both wearing that wary posture of men sent to step into someone else's mess. Evening, sir, the older one said. We got a call from a Mr. Thomas Harrison. Says there may be a domestic abandonment situation here. 2 minors removed from the home without cause. Behind him, Tom leaned against his Ford at the curb, arms crossed, eyes gleaming with smug righteousness. Laura gasped. He called the police. The officer glanced down at his tablet. He also mentioned potential utility shutoffs as retaliation. I stepped back, gesturing to the open door. Come in. You'll want to see this. They followed me inside. I set the binder on the dining table, opened it to the signed custody exchange acknowledgement. This, I said, was signed Tuesday night by both parties. Kids left with their biological father voluntarily at his request. Their utilities, I pointed to the printed Wi-Fi, management log timestamps, and all are on timed access. Still active. Nothing's been cut. The younger officer scanned the paperwork, then looked up at me. You documented all this? Yes, sir. The older one looked from me to Laura, then toward the door. Ma'am, were you aware of this exchange? Laura nodded. Yes, I'm their mother. I agreed. The officers exchanged a look. Then the older one sighed, the kind of sigh that said, We've been dragged into a custody war again. Sir, he said, closing the binder carefully, this isn't criminal. It's civil. Take it to court. I met his eyes. We plan to. Outside, Tom shouted, You'll regret this, Jack. The officer turned. Mr. Harrison, I'd recommend you go home before you make this something we have to regret. Tom hesitated, then stomped back to his truck, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the mirrors. The Ford coughed, then peeled off into the dark. The younger officer lingered a moment longer. For what it's worth, sir, he said quietly, I've got teenagers. You did what a lot of us wish we had the guts to do. But, document everything. Because the internet never forgets. Then they were gone. The blue lights faded, leaving us alone again in the hum of the refrigerator and the ghost of adrenaline. Laura sank onto the couch, head in her hands. I can't keep doing this. You can, I said softly. We're already doing it. My phone buzzed on the counter. A text from Grace Whitman, emergency hearing granted Friday 9 a.m. Hamilton County Family Court. I read it out loud. Laura looked up slowly, eyes wide and wet. Tomorrow, I said. We finally put everything on record. And for the first time in days, I let myself exhale. Just once. Just long enough to remember what breathing felt like before reputation became a battlefield. Friday morning, the courthouse smelled like burnt coffee and wild marble. Family court, where love goes to get notarized. Grace and I arrived early. She carried 2 binders under one arm and a laptop bag heavy enough to double as a weapon. Laura met us in the hallway, pale from her HR meeting, but holding steady. They said no disciplinary action, she whispered, as long as the social media thing gets resolved. That's what today's for, Grace said. Let's clean this up. Inside courtroom 3B, the magistrate, a gray-haired woman named Henderson, sat like she'd seen every variety of domestic case and found none of it entertaining. Her bench was stacked with manila folders, like casualties from a decade of bad marriages. Case 240319, the clerk called. Turner versus Harrison motion to modify support and enforce parenting plan. Tom was already there, wearing a jacket that didn't fit and an expression rehearsed for pity. Dana sat behind him, like a courtroom influencer, phone silenced but camera at the ready. Ruth wasn't allowed inside. Too many outbursts in past hearings, apparently, but I could feel her disapproval through the glass partition, like secondhand smoke. The magistrate looked at us over her glasses. All right, let's get to it. Mr. Turner, you filed this motion. State your purpose. Grace stood. Your Honor, we're requesting enforcement of the existing support order modification based on new financial evidence and reaffirmation of the co-parenting agreement. We also request that the minor's recent online activity, particularly a manipulated video, be addressed as part of the ongoing disparagement issue. The magistrate raised an eyebrow. A video. Grace hit play on her laptop. The edited TikTok filled the courtroom speakers. Mia's tear-streaked face, my voice cut mid-sentence. I'm not your father. Then the sad piano, the suitcases, the insinuation. Henderson frowned. Who created this? Grace. Mia Turner, age 16, with assistance from a third party. Here's the unedited version, Your Honor. The raw footage rolled. Me asking for respect, her reply about real parents, and the full conversation that followed. The difference was night and day. The magistrate sighed through her nose. Classic context mutilation. Seen worse on Facebook. Tom tried to object. They are kids. Teenagers make mistakes. Teenagers don't create viral campaigns accusing their guardians of abuse. Henderson interrupted. They follow examples, usually from adults who should know better. Her gaze cut to him like a scalpel. Mr. Harrison, you've been named in 2 prior contempt petitions for late support. Am I correct? Tom squirmed. There were complications with payroll, complications that lasted 37 months, she said flatly. Because that's what the record shows. She turned to me. Mr. Turner, you've documented expenses. I slid the binder across. Grace had tabbed it with surgical precision. Each color-coded: utilities, school costs, phones, groceries, sports fees. The magistrate flipped through the pages, nodded once. Thorough. Painfully thorough. Then it was Laura's turn. She took the stand, hands trembling, but her voice stayed calm. I've worked double shifts as an ER nurse since the divorce, she said. I thought protecting my kids meant shielding them from conflict. So I let things slide. Discipline, gratitude, respect. Jack didn't. And I see now, that's why we ended up here. Her eyes flicked toward Tom. He paid when he could, but Jack covered the rest. I didn't realize how much until it was all written down. Grace let the silence linger just long enough before cueing the next witness, the school counselor. The woman testified that Ethan's grades had dropped 2 letters in the last year, that both teens showed signs of screen dependency and boundary testing. She recommended family counseling before any reunification. By the time Grace rested our side, the room felt heavy with paperwork and quiet truths. Tom's attorney, a public defender on rotation, made a token argument about emotional instability and the harshness of cutting privileges. It didn't land. Henderson was already writing. Her ruling came crisp and deliberate. No hesitation, effective immediately. Mr. Harrison will resume current child support payments and establish a payment plan for the arrears owed. 2 all adult parties are prohibited from disparaging each other verbally or online. 3 both minors will begin counseling through an approved provider within 14 days. 4 re-entry to Mr. and Mrs. Turner's home will require a signed household contract. 5. The misleading social media post must be publicly retracted within 72 hours. The gavel dropped like a heartbeat. Grace leaned toward me, whispering, "That's a clean win." For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to oxygen fill my lungs. We stepped out into the hallway. Laura exhaled hard, leaning against the wall. "It's over legally," Grace said. "Emotionally, that'll take time. But today you turned the tide." Tom brushed past, muttering something about lawyer tricks. Dana followed, phone in hand, pretending not to record again. Then Ethan appeared, walking beside Mia. His face was unreadable, tight jaw, blank stare. As we passed, he muttered, just loud enough for me to hear, "You ruined my graduation gift." I stopped. "What did you say?" He didn't look at me. Nothing. But there was something in his eyes, a flash of defiance I'd seen before, the kind that meant I still have a secret. That night, after Laura went to bed, I sat at my desk clicking through our home Wi-Fi logs, a habit from years of managing networks at work. One line caught my eye. A string of guest devices, 20, maybe 30, logging in from unfamiliar IDs. Then recurring Venmo deposits to an account under Ethan's name. Notes read, Wi-Fi code, study files, premium access. My stomach turned cold. I opened his shared folder. Hundreds of PDFs, answer keys, study guides, half of them obviously copied exams from school servers, all distributed through our network. The kid wasn't just selling Wi-Fi passwords. He was running a black market tutoring ring. If the school discovered it, his graduation and his scholarship were gone. I sat back, heart pounding, staring at the flickering light of the router across the room. 3 years of fighting for respect, for structure, for truth, and my own roof was harboring the next explosion. I closed the laptop softly, almost reverently, like sealing a confession. The court might have seen me as the responsible one today, but tomorrow I'd have to be something worse, the father who exposed his own son to save him. Ethan didn't hear me come in. He was at his desk, the glow of the monitor cutting through the dark like a secret too bright to hide. I stood in the doorway long enough to watch his shoulders tense before he spun around. "Dad?" He caught himself, corrected. "Jack, I was just saving your future on a public network," I asked softly. His face drained of color. "You saw it, every file, every payment, every borrowed password." He opened his mouth, but I lifted a hand. "I'm not here as a cop, Ethan, or a judge. I'm here as a man who's seen what happens when smart people think the rules don't apply to them." For a second, he looked ready to fight, like he'd been storing up every teenage defense in the book. Then his voice cracked. "I didn't mean for it to blow up. It just got out of hand." I pulled out the chair across from him and sat. "Tell me why. Not the surface story, the real one." He looked down at his hands, knuckles white. "It started when Mom and Tom split. Everyone was broke. Tom used to brag that he made it work by hustling flipping junk online using fake accounts to get free subscriptions. Said if you were clever, you could beat the system. I nodded slowly. Then Ruthie hesitated, his throat tightening. She said, "You're not Folly. That you just bought your way into our lives. That you'd leave eventually." So I thought, if you were gonna pay for everything anyway, what's the difference if I bend a few rules to get ahead? He rubbed his eyes. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I just didn't want to feel like the kid everyone had to rescue. I leaned forward, elbows on knees. "Ethan, you're not stupid. You're gifted. But when you use your brain to cheat instead of build, it's like putting premium fuel in a stolen car. It burns fast and ends ugly." He swallowed hard. "What do I do now? You own it," I said. "Before someone else finds it. We call the school. Tell them everything. You face it head on." His eyes widened. "They'll kill my scholarship." "Maybe," I said quietly. "But you'll still have your name, and that's worth more than a free semester." He stared at me for a long time, then nodded. "Okay." We called the school the next morning. The vice principal listened, sighed, and called in the IT director. They confirmed the files, the payments, the violation of the honor code. It could have been expulsion, but honesty shifted the tone. After an hour, the verdict came down. Ethan would do supervised tech support hours for the district, 40 of them, repairing Chromebooks, cleaning malware, reconfiguring firewalls. A punishment that uses his mind for good, the IT director said with a small smile. When we walked out of the building, Ethan didn't speak. But at the parking lot, he said quietly, "Thanks for not letting me hide." "That's my job," I said. "Not to make it easy, just to make it right." That same afternoon, Mia posted her court-ordered retraction. It wasn't pretty. Her face was pale, her voice brittle, reading from a statement. Grace had approved the video I posted about my stepdad was misleading and hurtful. I took his words out of context. His text. He did not abuse me. I was angry and wrong. She hit upload, tossed the phone onto her bed, and muttered, "Happy now." I didn't answer. There was no victory in that moment, just consequence. The next morning, she barely looked at me before school. But that night, a text came through from her number. "I still hate how it feels. But I get it now. I'm sorry." I stared at the screen longer than I should have, then typed back, "We're all learning. Sleep well, kid." No reply, but I saw the read mark. That was enough. Grace kept us moving. She enrolled Laura and Tom in co-parenting therapy through the county. "Neutral ground," she said. "He won't like it, but it's mandatory now." He didn't like it. He showed up 10 minutes late to the first session, 15 to the second. But he showed. For Tom, that was practically a religious awakening. Money got tight fast. The hearings, filings, counseling, and the digital cleanup, it all added up. I watched the savings account dwindle until it looked like a dying pulse on a monitor. So one evening, while Laura was charting patient notes and the house was quiet, I drove to the storage lot off Route 42. My old fishing boat, sun-faded, stubborn engine, too many good memories, sat under a tarp. I signed the title over to a young father and his son for half of what it was worth. He smiled, said, "Gonna teach my boy to fish." "Take care of her," I told him. He nodded, unaware that I meant the boat and not the boy. Driving home, I didn't feel regret, just release. Like I was trading one piece of the past to buy a clearer tomorrow. It was late when the phone rang. The kind of late where bad news hides behind polite voice. "Mr. Turner." It was my urologist. His tone was gentle, too careful. "The biopsy's back," he said. "Can you come in tomorrow morning, 7 a.m.? We should talk in person." The air left the room. For a moment, I could hear nothing but the hum of the refrigerator and my own heartbeat. "Okay," I managed. "I'll be there." When I hung up, Laura was asleep on the couch, still in her scrubs, a half-finished chart open on her lap. She looked peaceful, tired, but peaceful, and I couldn't bring myself to wake her. I stood there in the doorway for a long minute, watching the woman who'd fought her way back into her own life, the kids upstairs finally sleeping without shouting, the house finally still. Then I whispered into the quiet, "One more storm, Jack. Just one more." And I didn't tell her. Not yet. The word cancer doesn't land like thunder. It lands like sweetest, pieced, slow. You don't hear it hit you, just realize you're breathing it. Friday, 7:00 a.m. The urology clinic smelled like antiseptic and resignation. The doctor was kind, practiced the way people get when they have given bad news so many times they have learned to pad it with empathy. "Localized," he said. "Favorable grade. Low PSA velocity. You caught it early, Jack." He was still talking treatment paths, percentages, side effects, but all I heard was the single syllable that split my world in two. Cancer. It didn't roar. It whispered. And that was worse. When I walked out of the clinic, the sun hit my face like it was mocking me. Driving home, I didn't play the radio. Didn't think. Just listened to the sound of my own pulse in my ears. Somewhere between the red lights and the mailboxes, it hit me how absurdly normal the world looked, while mine had just cracked. So I did the only thing that ever made sense when life got too loud. I mowed the lawn. The smell of cut grass always felt like control. Order. Straight lines when everything else was chaos. Halfway through the backyard, my chest tightened. Not from the cancer, not yet, but from the sheer weight of pretending everything was fine. My hands trembled on the mower handle, vision tunneling until the blades blurred into a hum that sounded like grief trying to escape my body. I shut it off, sat on the damp grass, and cried. The ugly kind, the kind that comes from a place beneath words. A minute later, I heard the creak of a gate. Walt appeared. 70 years old, stooped from decades of hard labor and harder memories, his slow gait steady as the seasons. He'd been my neighbor for 15 years, the kind who fixed your fence but never asked for thanks. He didn't say, "What's wrong?" didn't pat my shoulder, didn't fill the silence. He just sat down on the grass beside me, knees popping, and stared at the horizon. After a long time, he said quietly, "When my Margaret got her diagnosis, I tried to act brave. Thought if I didn't cry, she wouldn't either." He turned his weathered face toward me. "That's not how it works, Jack. Crying's just the body's way of making room for courage." We sat there a while longer, two old men in different stages of surrender, letting the morning sun dry what the night had broken. When he left, he only said, "You're tougher than you think. But even tough things bend." That afternoon, I told Laura. She was sorting laundry in the living room, humming without thinking. I stood in the doorway, suddenly unable to find the right entry point. "Laura," I said softly, "the biopsy came back." She froze, the hum dying mid-note. When she looked up, her eyes were already asking what I hadn't said. I told her everything. The numbers, the doctor's tone, the odds. The word. She didn't move for a full minute. Then she sat down hard on the couch, like someone had pulled the floor out from under her. When she finally spoke, her voice was small. "Cancer." I nodded. Her hands came up to her face, then dropped again. "You should have told me sooner. I wanted you to have one more week without fear." She stood, paced once, then twice. Her breathing hitched, but then she stopped, straightened, and something fierce settled in her eyes. "We handle this as a team," she said. "Not a question. A declaration. No secrets. Not anymore." And for the first time that day, the air felt breathable again. That evening, the house was quiet, except for the dryer rumbling. Laura was on the phone with the insurance company when my laptop buzzed, a FaceTime call from Mia. Her face filled the screen, No makeup, hair tied back, the raw look of someone who'd been through her own storm. "Hey," she said, tentative. "I got a part-time job at the grocery store." "That's great, kid," I said, trying to sound casual. "Proud of you." She bit her lip. "I don't want to mess it up. Can you show me how to, budget, for real?" That hit harder than I expected. The same girl who'd once told me I wasn't her dad was now asking me to teach her how to manage money. "Of course," I said. "Tomorrow night. Bring your paycheck stub. We'll make a plan." She smiled, a small trembling thing, but real. "Thanks, Jack." The call ended. Moments later, Ethan texted from upstairs. Withdrew from econ. Taking comp sci 2 instead. The hard one. For real this time. I stared at the message until the corners of my mouth lifted. The kid was finally starting to understand that integrity costs more, but it pays better. And then the last twist of the night, a text from Tom. "Hey, can you send me the counselor's address again? Might as well try this therapy thing, right?" I didn't reply immediately. I just stared at his name on the screen. Tom Harrison, the man who'd spent 3 years making me the villain, and felt something I hadn't expected: relief. Maybe people don't change overnight, but sometimes they stop fighting gravity. The house was dark when the phone rang again. Private number. Laura answered, voice low. "Hello." A pause. Then her expression changed, tightened, hardened. It was Ruth. I could hear her voice faintly through the receiver, that cold, clipped tone she reserved for sermons and scoldings. "Laura, if Jack dies, what will you have left? Think about it. The house is in his name. The money's drying up. You're gambling everything for a man who isn't even the father of your children." Laura's hand shook, her face pale but fierce. "You don't get to say that," she said. "Not anymore." Ruth kept talking something about security and practical decisions, but Laura hung up mid-sentence. She turned toward me, eyes glassy but steady. "I'm done letting fear make my choices." I reached for her hand. "That makes 2 of us." Outside, the wind picked up, gentle, but enough to rattle the windows. The floor had tilted, yes. But somehow, even with the weight of the word cancer still echoing in my chest, I felt a new kind of balance forming. Because for the first time in months, maybe years, everyone in my life was finally standing on the same side. Sunday came without fanfare, just the soft smell of roasted chicken and the hum of the oven timer counting down the seconds to something fragile. I set the table quietly, 4 plates, then 5, then 6. Laura added silverware. Neither of us said it, but we both felt the gravity of what the evening meant. This was either the beginning of healing or the start of goodbye. Out the window, headlights pulled into the driveway. Ethan climbed out first, taller, somehow shoulders straighter. Mia followed, clutching a folded piece of paper in both hands. Ruth stood behind them, arms crossed, her disapproval as thick as perfume. And at the curb, Tom waited in his truck, pretending to check his phone, as if uncertainty could hide behind a windshield. Laura opened the door. "Come in," she said simply. No fanfare, no smile, just invitation. Ethan and Mia stepped inside. The air between us trembled with everything unmet. They sat down at the table across from me, the silence taut as wire. Then Mia placed the paper between us. Ethan started, clearing his throat. "Wrote something. Together." He unfolded it carefully, smoothing the creases with both hands. His voice wavered at first, then steadied. "We're sorry for what we said, for not seeing what you were doing for us. We know now that helping isn't the same as controlling, and respect isn't the same as fear. We said things we can't take back, but we can act differently. We want to earn back your trust." He glanced at his sister. Mia continued softly, "I'm sorry for the video. I was angry and wanted someone to blame. I thought the internet would make it fair. It didn't. It just made it worse. You didn't deserve that. You were trying to make us grow up, and I made you the villain instead. Her eyes shimmered. I know words don't fix everything, but we're trying. When she finished, the kitchen was so still that even the refrigerator seemed to stop humming. I nodded once. Thank you, I said quietly. That means more than you know. Then I reached under the stack of mail on the counter and slid out a folder, the one labeled Family Contract. The same document that had started this long, messy climb back toward decency. Here's how we make sure we don't lose each other again, I said, spreading the pages across the table. Rules in black and white, so feelings don't have to carry all the weight. Their eyes followed my finger as I read down the list. 1. Respect both adults, not just with words, but tone and presence. 2. Chores. Posted schedule checked weekly. Everyone does their share, no exceptions. 3. Devices. Wi-Fi logs reviewed every Sunday. Privacy is earned by responsibility. 4. School. Assignments tracked. No shortcuts, no cheating, no hustles. 5. Gratitude. Say it and show it every day. See, no back-channeling. Family decisions stay inside the family, no more. Grandma said, no more seed deals. Ethan and Mia both nodded slowly, the kind of nod that comes from exhaustion and recognition, not obedience. Then I turned the page to the section marked Tom Harrison. Tom had finally stepped inside, awkward and silent, the truck keys jingling nervously in his hand. Your part, I said evenly, sliding it across. Support payments on time, co-parenting, class attendance, and financial transparency. And no more undermining or making side deals. He hesitated. The room waited. Finally he sighed, picked up the pen and signed his name. Fair enough, he muttered. Ethan reached for the pen next. Then Mia. Then Laura. When it came to me, I didn't sign first, I signed last. Because that's what accountability means. You wait to see if everyone else is willing to stand beside you before you put your name on the line. When it was done, the table looked less like a dinner setup and more like a peace treaty. Ruth, still in the doorway, cleared her throat. So this is how it ends, with paperwork. Laura turned to her, voice calm. No, Mom. This is how it starts. For the first time, Ruth didn't argue. She just picked up her purse, straightened her scarf, and left without hugging anyone. The front door clicked shut softly behind her. Laura watched her go, but didn't follow. She just exhaled, long and quiet. That's a first, she whispered. We ate then, not in celebration, but in quiet normalcy. The chicken went cold before the conversation warmed up, but it did eventually. Mia talked about her new job. Ethan mentioned fixing the district's firewalls. Tom even made a weak joke about getting therapy credit for showing up. When they finally left, the house was still for a moment. Laura leaned against the counter, her face tired, but softer than it had been in months. Did that just happen, she asked. It did, I said. And it felt real. She smiled. Real's good. Later, as I rinsed dishes, my phone buzzed on the table. A message from Mia. Hey Jack, school's doing Mentor Day next month. It's not Father's Day, just a day where kids bring an adult who showed up for them. You don't have to come, but if you want to, I'd like that. I stared at the text for a long time. The words looked small on the screen, but they filled the room. Only if you really want me there, I typed back. 3 dots blinked for almost a minute before her reply appeared. I do. I didn't realize I was smiling until Laura caught me. What, she asked. Nothing, I said, still smiling. Just something good. She came over, kissed my temple and whispered, keep collecting those. We sat together a while longer, the house quiet this time, not from absence but from peace. On the counter, the binder lay open to a new tab labeled Treatment. Tomorrow we'd meet with the oncologist to plan the next steps, radiation timelines, side effects, the whole road ahead. But tonight, I let the moment breathe. The house wasn't full of noise or fear anymore. It was full of presence. And as I turned off the kitchen light, I realized something simple and terrifying and beautiful all at once. The family I'd fought for finally existed. And now I had to fight to stay alive for them. Time didn't heal everything, but it started keeping a better rhythm. Weeks turned into a pattern, less chaos, more truth. The kind of quiet that wasn't silence but steadiness. Ethan kept curfew. He slipped once, stayed out an hour past midnight, because a friend needed a ride. Instead of excuses, he left a note on the counter. "My fault. I'll fix it." And he did cut the lawn the next morning before I woke up. No speeches, no fights, just action. Mia picked up weekend shifts at the grocery store. She'd come home tired, smelling like bread and sanitizer, but proud of her own money. One afternoon, she showed me the receipt for her summer volleyball camp. "I paid half," she said. "You can spot the other half if you want, but I earned this part." Later that week, when Walt twisted his knee stepping off the curb, she mowed his yard without being asked. Walt tried to pay her in old war coins and cookies. She refused both. Laura and I found our rhythm too, though ours was measured by radiation appointments. Early mornings, hospital parking lot, 2 travel mugs of coffee steaming between us. We'd joke about the gowns, the machines, the strange club we'd suddenly joined. Gallows humor, it's the only kind that works when you are counting treatments, like prayers. Before every session, we had a ritual, a simple tap of wedding rings. One small click of promise. "Still us," she'd say. And it was. The cancer was contained, manageable, maybe even beatable. But it taught us something scarier and simpler. There's no luxury in wasting time pretending you have endless days left. Tom surprised everyone. Court pressure and pride pushed him into consistency. The checks came on time, never early, never late, but steady. He showed up to co-parenting counseling too. He didn't talk much, but when he did, it wasn't excuses anymore. It was effort. The kids noticed. You could see it. It's the way Ethan stopped calling him the old man and started calling him Dad. Or how Mia didn't flinch when he hugged her goodbye after a session. It wasn't a miracle, but it was human, and that was enough. Then came Mentor Day. Mia had been nervous all week, pretending not to care, while rehearsing outfits and overthinking everything. When the day arrived, the gym was full, folding chairs, paper banners, the smell of cafeteria pizza hiding under gym floor wax. The principal called names and kids stood beside parents, aunts, neighbors, whoever showed up. When they called Mia Harrison, she looked back at us in the bleachers, then did something I'll never forget. She lifted her hand and motioned not to one man, but to 2. "Come on," she mouthed. Tom and I looked at each other, startled. Then awkwardly we both stood, walked side by side to her spot. The gym buzzed with whispers, camera phones, the curiosity of onlookers who couldn't decide if they were witnessing a miracle or a mistake. Mia didn't care. She just smiled between us, small but steady. When the applause came, it wasn't loud, but it was warm. Later, outside in the parking lot, Tom cleared his throat. "You did good with her," he said. "So did you," I replied. He nodded once, and for the first time in 3 years we shook hands like equals. Not rivals, not resentful ghosts. Just 2 men trying to raise the same kids right. That night, the sky hung low, with the kind of Ohio humidity that makes even the stars feel heavy. I set up a small fire pit in the backyard. Laura brought paper plates. Ethan grilled burgers. Mia set out chips and cheap soda. Walt wandered over from next door with his limp and his corny jokes. 2 old men walk into a clinic. One forgets why he's there. The other remembers too well, he said, and everyone groaned. I smiled anyway. When dinner was done, I pulled out the blue binder, the old ledger that had started it all. Every dollar, every fight, every receipt that proved I'd been the one holding things together when everything else fell apart. Laura looked at me, unsure. "You sure about this?" "Yeah," I said. "Time to stop counting." I tore the pages out one by one, fed them to the fire. The paper curled and blackened, numbers turning into ash into smoke. The ledger had measured money, but what it had really tracked was something harder: respect. And now, finally, I didn't need proof anymore. The smoke rose, carried by a breeze that felt clean. Ethan tossed another log on. Mia leaned against Laura's shoulder. Walt told another bad news. Tom's text buzzed my phone. "Thanks for today." I typed back, "We did right by her." Then, as the last ember popped, my phone vibrated again. A reminder I'd set weeks ago, back when the nights were darker. "Gratitude list tonight." I opened the note and stared at the blank space for a long moment. Then I typed a single word. Home. Not perfect, not easy, but honest. The sweet kind of payback I'd wanted all along. The kind that doesn't wound but heals. And as the fire died down, its light flickering across their faces, I realized something simple. I wasn't the stepfather who demanded to be loved. I was the man who stayed. And sometimes that's all a family really needs. Sometimes love doesn't sound like "I love you." Sometimes it sounds like "I'll show up anyway." I thought revenge meant making them regret what they said. "You're not our real dad." Turns out the real revenge was quieter. It was staying. It was earning respect without demanding it. It was watching a family learn to say thank you and mean it. So if you've ever been the one who gave too much for too long and finally drew a line, this story is for you. Tell me in the comments, have you ever had to choose between being liked and being respected? Because in the end, that choice built me a home. I'm Jack, and this was The Tuesday I Stopped Paying. If this story hit something real for you, hit like, subscribe, and never forget, boundaries don't break families. They build them.